Okay, it's the moment we've all been waiting for. All the fans want this, all the alumni want this. Everybody's been harping. When's the season preview pod coming out? When's the season preview pod coming out? Well, here it is. And we got head coach Andrew Checketts joining us. Checks, let's before we dive into some of the stuff about the upcoming season, schedule, predictions, accolades, all that stuff. Let's talk about alumni weekend because it was an absolute blast as it usually is. And there were some notable things that happened. And you want to kick it off with some alumni weekend recap? It was cool to see the 1983 team there.
Yeah, very, very cool. I mean, they had, I think, 80% of their team there. So smaller rosters back then, but I think they had 18 of their 25 players and most of their coaches there. So yeah, that was really cool to see them there. Jokovitis threw out the first pitch and threw a nice fading little sinker there. He went from the top of the mound as well, straight from the rubber and threw a strike. So started the weekend off right. Great turnout. So I think we had 120 people at the golf tournament, and a lot of guys in the dugout. So we had, I think, majority of the guys starting for the alumni team were current professionals. So that was fun to see, and proud moment for me was at the end. I think the alumni team that was out there at the end, every guy that was on the field that either won a conference championship or played in the College World Series when the game ended. That was pretty cool to see.
Definitely cool. You almost threw a no hitter.
I think we did. I think we did.
No, there's one hit on the board.
Yeah, you were doing the board at that point, right?
I wasn't doing the board.
Who was doing the board?
Me. I wasn't the official scorekeeper, but I was up there, and I am an alum. So
you are an alum, yeah. I figured you were pulling for the alumni team.
Infield single by Cole Mueller broke it up might have been the seventh inning, I think.
Yeah,
which was it was a 7 inning game.
You mean the one where he was going to be out by 20 steps and Kirtley threw it in the dugout, and then the alumni chanted for a hit.
Cole's a burner. Cole's a burner. Come on.
He did look good. I mean, he did look like he was in good shape, and but I think he was out by 20 feet. So,
well, I think that was a highlight. That was a highlight. I think the alumni had the other highlight of the day was the backhand stab by Caston at third.
Yes,
in the first inning. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, he didn't hold out on us. So.
But I didn't even think about that. In the last inning, everybody on the field either played in the World Series or won a conference championship. That's like JJ was out there. You had Tommy Jew out there. You had
Ryan Clark was out there.
Clark, Nick Vogt. You had Eric Yang. Like, it was great. So, but the pitching, like, Greg Malley's the best you can get to start the game for the alumni side. Like, we need to get some of those big names to come down and pitch. I know
don't insult Greg like that. He's still ready to go. He'd go CG.
He was. I didn't know he was going to be there, and I'm walking over the cage and I hear the bang, bang right of the balls against the med balls against the rubber Mets. And it's Greg Malley, full uniform, dripping sweat. Like, hey, Greg, what's going on? I didn't know you were pitching. He's like, yeah, I'm here. I'm getting hot. And it was just great.
He's still playing in Mexico. So at least he did last year. He played last year. So he's in shape. He's ready to go. He carved us for 2 innings. I think we got one infield hit. And
first two pitches, 2 outs.
Yeah.
In the first inning. Efficiency.
Yeah. We got to him. I don't know when it was, maybe pre-COVID, when he was still with the Angels, and we got to him a little bit. So he redeemed himself.
What about so the golf tournament? It was great. I had to fill some big shoes. I filled in for Bill Guyvet, who couldn't make it for alumni weekend, but he did. He was here this past weekend, hanging out with his friends. So we did miss Guyvet for the alumni weekend, but it was fun to play with JD and Mike and Casey Gorman. So we were an elite group, some volleyball players, ex-volleyball players, Hall of Famers, and myself. But it was cool to see the team at the dinner afterwards, wearing their jerseys and intermixing with the alumni. So that was a nice little touch.
Yeah, it was nice to have them out there, and nice to get back to some normalcy. The last couple of years, the pandemic, being pretty cautious, but nice to get guys back out there and have mingle with the older guys. And so nice turnout. It's been a good tradition and fun to see.
All right, let's move on. Great alumni weekends. Looking forward to doing it again next year. So first, let's go over some of the accolades that the Gouges have accumulated over the last couple of years. Of course, reigning Big West champs, champions 2 of the last 4 years, 3 years with COVID. It's so weird talking about that 2020 year because like you want to say 2 of the last 3, but it's really 2 of the last 4, but technicality. But 40 wins in 3 of the
For the
last
last three,
4
four seasons.
seasons, and 2 Big West titles, 19 and 2022. So the Gouges are coming into this year as the reigning champs. Highest win percentage on the West Coast in that span between 19 and 22 at 753. That's higher than UCLA, Stanford, Oregon State, Arizona, UCI, University of San Diego, and Cal Baptist, who have all those teams have been really good the last few years, and Gouges have the highest win percentage amongst those. And D1 baseball in the offseason named UCSB the 34th best program in Division One, and they've been doing that the last couple of years, and Gouges have moved up each of the last 3 years, which is great. And things like conference championships, getting big leaguers in there, and just overall success attributes to that. And Gouges did have a major league debut in the summer with Noah Davis. It was the last day of the season, but still a major league debut. Shane Bieber won a Gold Glove, had an outstanding year with the Guardians, and then Gouges now have a manager in Skip Schumacher. But anything you want to touch on those things? What about the D1 baseball, the 34th best program? We haven't really talked about that yet. I know you don't like tooting your horn too much, but you're just kind of like, yep.
Yeah, I don't ride it. So yeah, there's part of me that goes, yeah, that's great, and then there's part of me that goes, that seems low.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So when they have written those, they've traditionally kind of hammered us on our infrastructure and facilities as something that's held us back in some of those rankings. So I've got work to do on that end to continue to improve the facilities, and I think we've got all the other things that allow us to be a consistent top 25 team with academics, location, weather, proximity to good players, and so yeah, I think seeing the 34 is motivating to continue to try and the 2 things that you and I are in control of in terms of the facility, and try and continue to improve the facility part of it and the infrastructure part of it.
Climbed a ladder. There's always room to grow.
Yeah, I think that's what they consider the hole in our game right now. So we're actively working on that.
Yes, we are. Good things to come. So 2022 team stats, the Gouges, they finished 27-3 in the conference, really ran away with it. Led the Big West in home runs, set a new school record, 78 home runs. They were first in runs scored, triples, RBIs, total bases, slugging, walks, on base percentage, stolen bases, and saves. And they were second or third in ERA, strikeouts, batting average against, and offensive batting average. Brock Mortensen, second year in a row, leading the Big West in home runs. He had 16 last year. And now that he's back, since he came back, we talked about that earlier. Nice to have him in the lineup. So he's got 31 career home runs. He needs 12 to break the career school record, 42, which was set by Matt Wilkerson back in 05, 02 to 05. So that'll be something to watch, at least on my end.
Where's Austin Bush at on that list? Is he?
It's he has the single season record with 20, but he only has like 30 in his career, something like that. So I think he had the big year, hit the 20th in Hawaii. That was fun. But as far as career home runs go, it's Wilkerson 42, and then Mortensen. So he's got a chance this year for sure. But Sprinkle led the Big West in stolen bases last year, 25. Mikey Gutierrez was first in wins with 10, and Ryan Harvey was first in saves with 11. So Gauchos have been doing big things, and there have been lots of success on the field, lots of success off the field as well. And then 6 draft picks last year, I believe, and they all signed. Talking about like Vogt, Clausen, Willits, Corey Lewis, Ryan Harvey, and Jordan Sprinkle. So more draft picks, more success, and we're getting ready for what feels like could be another great year, 2023. So let's dive into the schedule. 55 game regular season schedule. What happened to the 56th? I think it was like a Tuesday game that had to be scratched. It's not that important, but
we had a home and home in St. Mary's, and they had an issue with the return game. So we kept the game up at their place. We're going up there for spring break, and then heading over to Fresno. We'll just stay up there. Like we did the same thing last year.
That's right.
We went up and then stayed and played at Davis. So we'll still go up there. They'll come back and we'll play one next year at our place for the return trip. But we couldn't find a date that worked there. We actually can play up to 59 games because we go to Hawaii. But
that's right.
On the quarter system,
it's a lot of games to mix in.
It's hard, yeah.
And an extra 3.
Yeah, we can't play a midweek during finals week. We have shortened week with the Thanksgiving week where we play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then a shortened week at the end of the year we play Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I try not to schedule midweek games.
The Easter week.
Yeah, what did I say?
Thanksgiving.
We don't play during Thanksgiving.
We don't play during Thanksgiving. Thank God.
We don't. Yeah, sorry about that. I was thinking about the fall game, I guess. So yeah, it's hard to squeeze those Tuesday games in. I think one of the things, when we came out of the pandemic and we played those 4-game weekends, every weekend in the Big West, you recognize how hard that is on a pitching staff. The pressure it puts on the bullpen and that many games. So I'm really hesitant to play 5 games in a week. We do play 4 games against Oregon. But and potentially we have a couple cold weather schools coming in with Xavier and Seton Hall that if they lost a game early, we would try and add a 4th game if it made sense. But I'm a little more hesitant to just cram games in there and put that pressure on those arms. So we've got a young group this year too. So we're at 55. It may turn into more. If we can, maybe add an extra game here or there, but there's just not a lot of places that make sense for it.
So here's the schedule breakdown: 29 home games, and then 22 on the road, and 4 neutral site games. We face 2 Pac-12 opponents, 1 Big Ten, 2 from the Mountain West, 3 from the WCC. That's the West Coast Conference. 1 from the WAC, and 2 regional teams from last year in Oregon and Oregon State. The home opener, of course, February 24th against the Oregon Ducks. The season opener this week. We're recording this a week ahead of time, but this week, now when people listen to it, Friday, February 17th against Minnesota in Arizona. We'll get to that in a moment. Let's see. Yeah, so home opener, February 24th at Cesar Osaka Stadium. Make sure you are there. Midweeks, 4 different midweek opponents: Pepperdine, St. Mary's, LMU, and Cal Baptist. And then the usual slate amongst the Big West, where you play all 10 teams, 3 games each. Let's go to the first weekend. It's at the Sanderson Ford College Baseball Classic in Surprise, Arizona. Gauchos will play 4 games, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. The first 3 are at 5 o'clock Friday through Sunday, and then it's a noon start. Noon start. Is it noon in Arizona, or because it's an hour ahead of time, or is it noon in here in California
I believe
for
that's
that
going to
first
be
one?
noon there, so 11 o'clock here.
Yeah, 11 o'clock here on Monday. But I would go Minnesota Friday, New Mexico Saturday, Minnesota Sunday again, and then Oregon State on Monday afternoon. So can you give us a little breakdown on how the Gauchos wound up in the Sanderson Ford College Baseball Classic? I think it had to do with an Oregon State series, um, and some scheduling stuff. But it's cool. The Gauchos don't really go to these traditionally. We went to the Tony Gwynn Classic in 2016, where we played Kentucky, Bryant, and San Diego, I believe, in those three games. And it's as a broadcaster and as someone who doesn't have to do scouting reports, and watch film and all this stuff, and like gather a scouting report for three different teams or four different teams for one weekend. It's fun to go to these things and see a bunch of different teams. But we haven't traditionally, at least in your tenure here, we haven't really done that very often. So how did the Gauchos wind up in Arizona?
Yeah, it was a home and home. We played Oregon State and had it scheduled with the old coaching staff. So when Coach Casey who was my head coach when I played there, and then Coach Bailey, who was running their scheduling, who was actually my high school coach. So we had it scheduled where we were going to do a series at their place, then a series at our place, and I think somewhere along the staff transition, there was some lost in translation with some of the dates and some of that stuff. So, anyways, this is our return trip from Oregon State. We took what we could get at that point, and
From 2020.
yeah,
We went
so
there in 2020. Yeah.
so they're hosting the tournament, and we got a little help in terms of some guarantee stuff to get out there. And so yeah, that's how we ended up with that tournament.
Yeah. So surprise, it's in the Phoenix area. It's about an hour, I think, outside of Phoenix. Spring training home of the Kansas City Royals and the Texas Rangers. So we'll be playing at Surprise Stadium, which is a nice facility. I'm digging into my memory bank because I'm pretty sure that when I was in high school, I played at one of the Junior Olympic tournaments in the summer down there, and I believe we played in Surprise. It was Royals, Rangers, and I think the Mariners are there too. And if you've never been there, it's flat. It's just a bunch of pristine natural grass baseball fields down there. So that'll be fun for the boys to get out there and play on some real high quality surfaces before we come back home, which kicks off the 5 weeks in a row of home games. I think there's one midweek mixed in there, but Gauchos start their season off at home for, February 24th against Oregon. Then we will host Xavier for three.
Going there.
Hang on one sec. Host Xavier for three, then midweek at home against Pepperdine, and then Seton Hall for three, followed by the Big West openers against Bakersfield, and then CSUN with a midweek against LMU mixed in there. But some early tests for the Gauchos this year, because Oregon State and Oregon, both regional teams last year. That Oregon series last year in Eugene was fun. It was challenging. It was kind of a coming out party for some of the younger Gauchos. And like in 2021, in which the Ducks swept the Gauchos at home at Cesar Wasaka Stadium, where the Gauchos had leads late, and Oregon came back and wound up sweeping the Gauchos. It felt like it was going to start out that way or go that path again after Oregon came back in the ninth and won on a walk-off on Friday. But Gauchos showed some resiliency and won the last two games. After Oregon won the first two, they won the shortened 7-inning game. So there's been some recent history between the Ducks and the Gauchos, which has been fun to watch. But 4-game series with a 7-inning game and then a 9-inning game on Saturday. But some early tests early on against some Power Five conference schools in February.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be a good challenge. We had, like I said, we've got a young group, and um, we've had a standing series with Oregon for like this will be 4 straight years.
Mm-hmm.
This 4 straight, or is it next year?
I think it's three, and then there's going to be another one next year. Pretty sure.
Fourth. So we like playing them there. We got a good program and good coaches, and they're competitive. It helps get us ready, and it'll be a challenge. So, but yeah, I thought that series last year was a turning point for the team to be able to bounce back after going 0-2 and looking like we were going to be upside down. Be able to come back and play well. So yeah, it's a challenging slate early. You know, we've got a group that we think's up to the challenge, but it's gonna be competitive, and we'll get tested early.
And then, of course, Xavier. Gauchos haven't faced Xavier since they eliminated them and won the Nashville Regional in 2016. The Musketeers out of the Big East. And Seton Hall. I don't know much about Seton Hall. They are they're in the Big East. Wait, did I say that right? Xavier.
Yeah, they're both in the Big East.
Yeah, both in the Big East. I'm used to seeing Xavier and Seton Hall as basketball schools. But yeah, Seton Hall, the Pirates out of the Big East, New Jersey. Um, Jerry Fall might be psyched that we're playing Seton Hall because he's originally from Jersey. But those are the first 2 weekends of March. There's a Tuesday game against Pepperdine on the 7th. Then the Gauchos go on the road against LMU, but lots of opportunities to see the Gauchos play. We pretty much play at home the entire month of March. Kick off the Big West season at home against Bakersfield, March 17th. And then after that, it's CSUN. And going through my notes and looking at these teams, lots of former Gauchos and Gaucho coaches scattered amongst the Big West. So we'll see Quinn Hawksworth and David Tillotson with Bakersfield, and then Coach Corneo, Eddie Corneo, the new head coach at CSUN. So there'll be lots of friends to catch up with the first 2 weeks of the Big West Conference season. So, but shout out Eddie Corneo, new head coach at CSUN.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
And we got Neil at CSUN. I'm sorry, Fullerton, and
Fullerton.
then Harv down at UC San Diego. So
yeah, Matt Harvey, Ryan Bob at UCSD, and then excuse me, Matt Fontino, associate head coach at Cal Poly.
yeah.
So let's see.
Reunion tours.
Lots of reunion tours. So after those, it's that St. Mary's road trip that you mentioned. Gauchos will be on the road 2 weeks in a row. St. Mary's and then at Fresno State that first weekend of April. Gauchos will be the 1st of April. And then it's Fullerton on the road. Let's see. Irvine at home. Then another road stint at Pepperdine at UC San Diego as we get into mid-April. And come back home Davis. Then it's down to Riverside for Baptist and UC Riverside, home for LMU. Then it's at Long Beach State, home Cal Poly. Finish up the year on the road at Hawaii. So there's there's always difficult places to play in the Big West. A couple that I've circled. Obviously, the trip back to Long Beach State, that was a fun series 2 years ago in 21 when the Gauchos were down there. Long Beach last year, by the time they got to the Gauchos last year, they were kind of had a fork stuck in them. It wasn't as competitive as we thought it might be last year, but Long Beach State they've retooled. You got Rich Hill, who's as at Hawaii, and Hawaii gave the Gauchos some trouble last year. So those are obviously two big trips at the end of the conference season that I have circled. Obviously, Fullerton would be tough, but who are some guys or some teams that you are aware of that could give the Gauchos some trouble this year? Obviously, UCI. It's been the Gauchos and UCI taking the conference crowns the last few years, but are there some standouts for you based on last year and based on some things that you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think Hawaii is the sleeper for me. They finished in third place last year, and it's the first time they've been above 500 in the Big West since they joined the league. I think Rich does a good job. They've got a lot of offensive parts coming back. They've taken a recruiting approach, trying to get those um, the native Hawaiians to stay and play, and we've recruited those guys back from some transfers back. So they've got a really good team. They turned over some pitching, but I think offensively they've got one of the better teams in the conference, and some older, experienced, good players. And so if they can get their pitching dialed in, I think they're going to be competitive. Irvine's going to be good. Obviously, Coach Orloff does a great job. They've got some offensive pieces back. They've got a number one back with Pinto. So they're going to be competitive. Cal Poly's finished in the top third in the league almost every year, so it's hard to not imagine that they're going to do that. We saw them in the fall. They've got some good arms and some good young arms, and Coach Fontino's up there as well, and I think he does a great job. So they're going to be tough. I think Fullerton's the one that'll be interesting. They jumped in the transfer portal and got a real weekend starter from Pepperdine. They've brought in some other transfers, some JC guys. So I think their talent level is going to be steadily increasing, and that will make them more competitive. I think CSUN's got a chance to be good. They've got a legitimate ace and Lucas Braun. They've got some holes to fill on the position player side of things, but they've got some good arms coming back. A couple other young guys that threw for them last year that we liked when we saw. And then Long Beach, I just don't know what to expect with Long Beach. What they've got 33 new players on the team, so a big roster turnover. So I don't know what to expect with them. I know Coach Valenzuela is competitive and does a good job, and we've had some battles when he was at St. Mary's and battles when he was at Long Beach. So I think that'll be a competitive series. And then you see San Diego. They've got a bunch of guys coming off injury that are real on the mound. They've got a couple, 2 or 3 guys that they have a chance to have some real pitching. I think this year they lost some offense, but I do think they've got some real pitching that has a chance to be good. Especially some of those guys coming back. So anyways, competitive league, it's going to be a battle, and we think we've got some good pieces, but we've got to put it all together and turn it into being a good baseball team instead of a good bunch of individuals.
Yes, D1Baseball.com projected standings. They picked the Gauchos to win. Then it was Long Beach, UCI, Cal Poly, Fullerton, Hawaii. So Hawaii at 6, then it's CSUN, San Diego, Bakersfield, Davis, and Riverside. And yeah, just going through, like I know talking with Matt Harvey last year, he mentioned that they had lost some arms and were struggling on the mounds, and that showed, I think, in a lot of their series, particularly with the Gauchos. And then Hawaii, the Gauchos only lost 3 games last year, and that Hawaii series here was very tight. They came back and won that wild Sunday game on the road. And Fullerton, they've been down. They have a new head coach. Neil's there. Neil's great, and they're Fullerton. Seeing them at 5 in the standings is unusual, and you would expect them to climb back to where they expect themselves to be. And then Cal Poly, they lost Brooks Lee to the draft, top 5 pick. I mean, Brooks, I was going over the stats, like trying to look for Gauchos and the offensive stats. Even though Gauchos as a team led the conference in all these categories, it was just Brooks Lee that dominated everything individually except for the home runs. But they will be without Brooks Lee, but they do get Joe York back, who was second in the conference in hits. And he's a stud at the plate. And they have a couple of Santa Barbara guys. Derek True, I think he was listed as one of the top draft prospects in the conference. And they have Bryce Worker as well.
Both Santa Barbara High grads. That hurts, by the way.
Right.
They're at Cal Poly. We tried, and they're both good. They're both talented. Derek got drafted last year. turned it down. Decided to come back and turn down that opportunity. And we saw him this fall. He looked very good. So they're going to be competitive on the mound. I think they'll find enough offense. Larry does a good job, and Matt does a good job on that side. So it's going to be competitive for sure.
Yeah, and Long Beach, 33 new players. I think one of the better pitchers we saw last year was Jerron Watts Brown, and he transferred to Oklahoma State. And yeah, so Long Beach, they're picked second. I think they have some bats that are back. That could be volatile, but it's
real catcher in Barnes. He's
right.
the best defensive guys on the West Coast, and then the Long kid can really handle the bat. They brought in a transfer from UNLV that had good numbers last year. So and like I said, Eric does a good job. They're competitive, so he'll get the group going.
And I have this thought. I've been kind of ruminating over for a while, and it mostly stems from how football. I mean, I follow college football and college basketball. And I try and stay in tune with kind of the ebbs and flows of the college game across the spectrum. And with the COVID year, and we've seen the Big West baseball side, they say, quote, down the last couple of years, as far as like the conference is top heavy, and out of nowhere, I'm not going to say out of nowhere, but a new champion in the Gauchos who hadn't won it in all these years, and then they win it again, and it's kind of all the talent is kind of coagulated in these few schools, and like the bottom half has been not great, right? And it's a lot of these things have been pointed to the COVID year. So if the reference here is football, where the West Coast schools in football, because of the restrictions and the rules that were put in place to keep people safe and all this stuff in 20 and 21, there was some recruiting things and some time on the field that was missed, and they were really behind some of the Midwest and the East Coast schools. And this is some speculation, this is some opinion, this is kind of a mixture of things, but I'm kind of trying to come to this conclusion of like, why has the Big West been down? Why was the Pac-12 football down? Why was West Coast football and West Coast basketball down the last couple of years? I think it's because you miss time on the field or on the court or on the pitch or wherever. But now that we're another year clear of COVID, and there's been proper recruiting, proper time on the field, no missed time in the weight room, no missed time in practice and scrimmage and all this stuff, it's back to full bore for a year plus. I think we're going to see the Big West go back up and trend back towards where it used to be, and with the transfer portal stuff where kids can come in, the Gauchos took advantage of that, getting Ivan Bredauer, who looks like an absolute stud. I think we could see the Big West trend back in the right direction, because we saw Pac-12 football be extremely competitive this year. 6 teams ranks, winning bowl games, and even Pac-12 basketball, and has gotten a lot better than what it was a couple of years ago. So I don't know. This is kind of here and there, but with that being said, I think we could see a resurgence in the conference. I don't think it's going to be as top heavy as we saw it in 21 or last year. Like, I think Davis and Riverside are going to be better. Bakersfield is going to be better. I think it could be a much more difficult league to compete in, like we're used to seeing, is basically what I'm trying to say here. Would you not agree? Somewhat, on some level.
I hope that it's bouncing back. I think we have really good coaching in the league.
And that too. Yes.
I think that's, I do. I think we've got really good coaching, and it's kind of a balance of, some more experienced coaches at some places, and then some new young and up and comers that are aggressive and, prove themselves as recruiters over the years. So I do think we have really good coaching. I think the downturn started before the pandemic. I think you could start to see, I think I don't know what year it was, maybe 19, we were one big conference, and you could start to see some of that slide a little bit. And I think you can follow the money on it, and it tracks back to investment. I think, our conference had kind of sat on their heels, and um, we got to talk about how good we were because we were, in a proximity where we can get a lot of really good players. And I think the recruiting world has changed over the last, 5, 6, 7 years. It's happening earlier. Travel ball coaches are controlling the process a little bit more. The SEC has really invested heavily into their resource, their facilities, and the flash. Social media has changed it. I think kids feel like it's really cool to commit to a bad Power Five school, as opposed to a good mid-major school. And I think that's changed the talent level on the field. And if you go back 5, 6, 7 years, um, regularly, and not that recruiting rankings mean anything, because some of our best recruiting classes weren't
Right.
ranked, and so that doesn't mean everything, but I do think you would see consistently Long Beach, Fullerton, and another school from the conference that maybe that was Cal Poly or Riverside or Irvine or ourselves that would sneak in there with a ranked recruiting class. Um, 7, 8, 9 years ago, that was regular. You would see that, and now as you look at those top 25 ranked recruiting classes, you're not seeing very many schools without football programs that are in those rankings. And so, I'm hoping the pendulum swings a little bit, and part of our recruiting pitch to kids regarding that is you're probably going to go to 2 football games in your career. What are you going to do the other 300 and 50 days a year? And the things that really are important that you're going to wake up and value are going to be, your academics, and where you live and your environment that you're in, and then the coaches and people you're around that are there to help you get better. And that's real meat and potatoes of what's important. And I think our conference has a lot of that to offer. And I'm hoping that again, that pendulum will swing a little bit, and some of the sexiness of playing at a bad Pac or SEC school will go away.
It is an interesting, it's an interesting field that we're playing in now, because with the transfer portal rules where you can transfer, play the next year, you can see maybe a walk-on comes to a non-Power 5 school like a UCSB, has a huge year, and then gets plucked by one of the Power 5 schools, after 1 year. So he's going there as a sophomore. But you can also see big hotshot recruit goes to a Power 5 school, and maybe gets a handful of at bats, doesn't get the type of playing time that they wanted, or is beat out by somebody else who's better, and then he can transfer to a school like UCSB and have an immediate impact. And I'm not in the recruiting landscape, so I don't know as much as you. So this is kind of outside looking in type of comment that last thing was. But I look at the type of physical player like Ivan Bredauer or Jared Sundstrom that the Gauchos have, where like in my time here, I haven't really seen too many guys with the tools that they have who come in as transfers. And I've been so impressed by those two in particular, just because they're so noticeable when they have the uniform on and they're swinging the bat or they're throwing the ball from the outfield. Like it's this interesting landscape that I think we're getting into with the transfer portal stuff. NIL, like it's a discussion for another day, because I still want to get to who's going to be on the field for the Gauchos this year. But those two are going to be major players on this team, Sundstrom and Bredauer. So I guess we can start in the outfield. Like, who do you think we're going to see log some significant innings in the
Can I
outfield?
jump in on the transfer portal real fast and give you my?
You can. I'm trying to get this in and for
Okay, all right.
by your phone call 11:15, but
Yeah.
you can comment on transfer portal. Let's hear it.
Yeah, I just don't think that's going to be our niche. I looked last year, and the Big West was bleeding players more than it was picking
Right.
up,
Right.
There's been players in our league that go in the transfer portal that, we're skeptical of whether, we want them, and they end up at Power Five schools or have multiple Power Five offers. So we've had a lot of luck in the JC ranks. We think a lot of those kids are hungry, and
Brock Mortensen, JC guy. Yeah.
yeah, it's the
Mikey Gutierrez,
yeah.
JC guy.
Cole Cummings,
Cole Cummings. Mm-hmm.
Connor Dan, Zach Tora,
Mm-hmm.
Connor Roberts, who was a kickback from us back to us, Clayton O'Connor. So yeah, we've had a lot of luck there, and I don't think we think that and young projectable high school guys are still our niche. And I think the current coaches that we have on staff and the coaches prior, the assistant coaches, I've said this a bunch, but they did a great job. Our freshman pitching class here is as good as we've had, as good as we brought in, high ceiling guys with some ability to help right away. And then we've got some physicality. We're a little short in the middle, which is a bit of a bobble on our end. We should have brought some more middle guys in. We're trying to rectify that with our next class. But yeah, I think that, that transfer portal, and maybe I'm biased because I'm here, but I don't see us losing a lot of players, unless we have a miserable year. Because I do think the guys like it here. I think they value the academics and the weather and the location and the environment. And I don't think we're going to have a lot of guys that will leave here into the transfer portal. Just my thought.
Good. It's good thought. Keep that thought going. Because you're right. I've been here as long as you have, and I left and I came back. So
yeah. I think we will pick up a transfer here or there, and we aren't giving up on that, but it's got to be the right fit and the right guy, and it's got to be. We have some admissions limitations in terms of timing and what year they can be. So grad students aren't an option for us. Seniors are really tough, but like Ivan's case, we found a guy that was fit and worked, and he's got a chance to come in and contribute right away. And I think that's what we will see is as the transfer portal, blows up. Some of these teams are going to, hoard and gather all these players, and those young guys that they brought in those recruiting classes are at some point look at, hey, how do I get on the field? It's pretty hard to get drafted if I can't get on the field. And you may see some of that happen where players maybe are less patient, or they don't see a path where they're going to get on a field and transfer to places that maybe they have more of an opportunity. So we'll see how all that stuff plays out.
Well, let's get into some talk on who is going to make an impact on the field for the Gauchos this year. Collegiate baseball has the Gauchos preseason rank at 14. There's one other poll that I saw recently that had the Gauchos in the top 25, but that's the only one at the moment. Preseason pitcher of the year was given to Mikey Gutierrez, and preseason freshman of the year was given to Tyler Bremner. So a couple of pitchers getting preseason accolade nods. So that's within the Big West Conference. Big West pitcher of the year, preseason Mikey, preseason freshman of the year Bremner. And then there are a few preseason All-Americans, Ryan Gallagher and Mikey Gutierrez named a second team by Collegiate Baseball, and then Carter Benbrook named a third team by the NCBWA. So lots of pitching amongst the preseason accolades. Even though the Gauchos led the Big West Conference in all those hitting categories last year, but hard to, with all the offense that we've seen around the country these last couple of years, hard to get the nod on the offensive side of things. But I think Ferg might have a thing or two to say about that throughout the season. But let's see who's going to be on the field. We talked about a little bit in the fall recap, but Mikey Gutierrez, Tyler Bremner, certainly candidates to start on the weekends. What are the other names that could start on the weekends or in midweeks for UCSB, or at least are competing? Probably Matt Ager, probably a couple more.
Yeah, Matt Reed Mooring, who's another freshman for us, who's really polished and has been impressive. Tyler Bremner, And then Frank Camarillo. I would say those are the five leading candidates for those four spots. If I had to pick today, it'd probably be uh, Gutierrez, Ager, Mooring, and then Bremner and Camarillo tandeming on the midweek. Um, so JD Callahan's kind of lurking and there as well, and in the mix at the back end of that. So Hudson Barrett and Carter Benbrook, who we had been working up to potentially start, were looks like we're going to move them into the pen. They're going to move into a pen roll this weekend as we get ready. So Carter
A
likely.
couple of lefties there, Hudson first year, and then Carter, of course, coming back from arm surgery. So it'd be good to have a couple lefties there in bullpen.
Yeah, the years we've been good, we've had a dominant fireman type guy, and a lot of them were left-handed. Greg Molly and Kyle Nelson and Carter Benbrook and Michael McGreevy was not left-handed, but was one of those dominant guys. So, and then I think Hudson Barrett's got the mentality to potentially close out games. So, and the stuff to do it. I think stuff plays up in short stints. And, it wouldn't surprise me to see him going 93 to 96 at the back end of the game with a pretty good changeup. And so we think he'll be one of those guys that maybe can close. Sam Whiting's another guy that has really come on. It's been up to 95. It's really been pretty consistent since we've been back. He'll be in the mix for that setup, a closer type role, and then we've got another handful of guys that'll be in the mix to throw setup roles.
Okay, can you give us a rough draft of a starting lineup for this Friday?
No, I cannot.
Can't? You got it. Not even a rough draft.
It's funny.
You want to keep that private.
Yeah, no. We met after scrimmages on Sunday night, and I met with the staff, and I said, "Hey, give me your lineup." And it's funny to hear Ferg, because he wants to play all the guys, and I said, "There's only 9 spots.
Yeah, let's just bat 14."
Yeah, I mean, there's only we've got realistically probably 12 candidates for the 9 spots, and he kept saying, well, this guy has to play, and well, this guy's got to play. I said, yeah, but that means that somebody else doesn't play. Like, who are we going to? And I think we like our guys, and obviously we all know that Ferg has a real good relationship with those guys and is pulling for them like crazy. So it's hard for all of us to not play guys, especially when you feel like they're worthy and can do some damage. We think we've got more guys than we have spots for going into it. So we're going to have a bit of a rotation early until some of those guys, establish themselves. So
Go around the infield.
Well, I think the easy ones right now, if I think today would, Xander at third, LaTrey McCollum at first base, the 2 catchers, John Newman and Aaron Parker will split time back there. Newman's the probably number 1 there based on experience. They're both very good. That's a tough one because, we've got to get Parker in there. We think he's, one of the catchers of the future and not just the future, but of now. And he's good. He's talented. And so how do we get him in there? And then what do we do with Newman when Newman's not catching? He's probably going to hit leadoff for us. So it's hard to have your leadoff hitter out of the game. So there's some moving parts that we've got to work through. The middle, you've got Corey Nunez, Nick Oakley, and Jonah Sebring, with Oakley and Nunez being the better defenders of the group. And Jonah can move to the outfield as well. And then the outfield, we got, we're going to play 5 outfielders. So hope everybody
double rover. Nobody gets any hits.
Yeah. Hopefully our opponents are good with that. So, Brett Auer, Sundstrom, Sebring, Kirtley can run out there. Brock Morton.
Kirtley saved a game last year. Like, he literally robbed a game-winning home run. And we've commented on Kurt's outfield ability, made fun countless times, but he backs it up because he makes plays.
He's a sneaky good
Yeah.
outfielder. He does make plays. The arm's getting better. Brock, you get the conference leader in home runs the last 2 years. He's got to be in there. And then we've got Jesse Brown and Josh Williams, who really came on and played well and swung the bat well. So yeah, we don't have enough spots to give the guys, and it's going to be hard to give guys the runway to go out there and you have some guys that you'd like to just go, hey, you're going to play the first 6 games, good, bad, or ugly, and give them some runway to work through it. And it's going to be hard to do that. We're going to have to rotate some guys in and out. So more platooning.
This is when you like, I kind of wish we were playing 59 games. So we had some extra games to give these guys.
Yeah.
This is the counter to the earlier comment about the schedule and sneaking in 59 games with academics and the couple of days where you're not playing on Sunday. And yeah, it's just part of it.
All. Yeah.
What? Okay. So you've named a bunch of guys. So now, okay, let's go 1 through 9.
You'll see it when we post it on Friday next week. I don't know. I haven't even looked at a scouting report yet, so we're just starting to work on that. So I think a lot of it's going to be dependent on who's throwing for the other team. I think that's going to, whether we have a line change with left-handed versus right-handed. I don't know if we'll completely do that, but in the outfield, you could definitely see, with Josh Williams and Brock and some of those other guys, maybe there being some platooning going on early. So,
okay, well, there you have it. That's the season preview with head coach Andrew Checketts. There will be 9 players on the field against Minnesota on Friday. It'll be a painstaking process, but we will get there. I promise. Andrew promises, right? You promise we'll get 9 guys on the line card.
Let's say let us hit more.
Okay, you can listen to all of the games online, radio stream. The link is on the website, on the schedule page. I will have all the games play by play, and then all of the home games. I know that we will stream. All the Big West games will stream on ESPN Plus. I'm not 100% sure on the games in Surprise if they will be streamed. I imagine they will. I know some of those games are on like MLB Network. I don't think it's our group of games, but you can listen to me on the radio or stream on your phone for those 4 games in Surprise, Arizona. We hope to see you there. No number of people that will be there in Arizona. All the Hammerheads, of course, they'll be there playing golf and watching baseball games as they normally do. But we have 55 games. It's a great schedule. It's a beautiful day today. Even though if you're watching this, got my hood on, vest. It's cold in this new house that I'm living in, but the sun is shining and it's almost baseball season. So I hope you're fired up. I know Andrew's fired up, and we're ready to do this. So thank you, Chex. Good work. And looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. Go Chos.
All right. That's Andrew Checketts, head coach of the Gauchos.